Do you want another action RPG to play? There's been a ton of information dropped for Path of Exile 2, and if you're in the same boat as us where you haven't played much of PoE 1 but you're interested in Path of Exile 2 because it looks cool, then here's a bunch of awesome things that we found out after looking into the game that we thought you might need to know about what the classes are saying, the gameplay, and general release information. Let's start with the classes, as this is one of the more interesting things about any action RPG. We already know that Path of Exile 2 will have a large number of classes to pick when it launches, as there will be 12 in total, with 6 new classes being introduced into the game. These classes include Sorceress, Monk, Huntress, Mercenary, Warrior, Druid, and alongside that, each class will have ascendancies, with 3 for each class, which are basically like a way to further spec into your own preferred playstyle of that class. The developers haven't released information about all the new classes, but at their recent Exile Con, they showcased a bunch of gameplay for some of these new classes. For the Sorceress, it looks like exactly what you would expect it to be, and it looks like an absolute blast at controlling the elements. Unsurprisingly, it's a ranged magic class that can use different staffs to focus particular elemental damage types. Some of the spells that the Sorceress can summon are particularly devastating, like a massive comet spell that has a very long cast time, but the developers say is well worth the wait due to the amount of damage it deals. Next is the Monk. If you're looking for something a bit more close range but with a ton of utility, then this class is one to keep your eye on in the lead up to launch. The Monk's able to deal damage at close range, but also freeze enemies in place. One of the cool things about the freeze is that it actually works on bosses if you build it up, and we love this because often in games where you get cool CC abilities, they only work on trash mobs and never the bosses. The Monk also has some fantastic movement skills, meaning you can dart all over the place. Then we have the Warrior, your more traditional hit things standard class, and it has a lot of synergy with sundering and armor breaking abilities. But the class isn't just about breaking through the enemy's defenses, as a large number of its skills have some type of movement tied into them, meaning the class will be a bit like the Monk in that it has a ton of mobility options. After causing armor breaking with their skills, you can then combo this with other attacks such as a leap attack to additionally stun the enemy. These combos and options that the Warrior will have make them sound pretty spicy if you're interested in being up close and personal when taking things down. The next new class is the Druid, and one of the classes I'm personally most interested in as a big fan of Druids in any game. This one is able to shapeshift and use elemental magic, making it a perfect hybrid class if you want to do a bit of everything while also being useful. Players will have to focus on strength and intelligence if they pick the Druid up, and during the showcase, the developers mainly demonstrated the bear form for the Druid, which has a bear movement set revolving around AoE slams that build up rage that can be used to rampage, which is an ability that allows you to repeatedly slam the ground. We're really interested in seeing more of this class and its different forms, as to be honest, it's looking pretty awesome. But another awesome looking class is definitely the Huntress. This one specializes in showcasing her proficiency with spear-based techniques. Her arsenal includes the capacity to conjure destructive lightning through spear throws and harness attacks to create a surrounding zone that inflicts severe bleeding upon foes caught within it. This is another class that focuses on mobility, as in general mobility seems to be a huge thing in Path of Exile. Whirling Strike stands as a remarkable ability within the Huntress's toolkit, generating a swirling flurry of slashes around her. It can even be activated repeatedly and extends the skill's effective range, which potentially boosts its damage output as well. When you exit the whirlwind through any means, whether it's by walking, evading, or utilizing another skill, it then triggers a final explosion that releases damage in the area around it, but does terminate its effect. The Huntress is looking like it's going to be similar to the Rogue in terms of how active its playstyle is, and comboing together skills will be a core function of this class as you weave in and out of combat. Outside of these classes though, we know that the game will be set 20 years after the events of PoE 1, and it was very initially developed as a graphical overhaul to Path of Exile 1's characters, but due to the developers waiting to overhaul more of the game than they initially planned to, they decided to make it a completely new game, and thus Path of Exile 2 was born. The developers are aiming for Path of Exile 2 to exist alongside Path of Exile 1, with each game having its own mechanics, balance, endgame, and leagues. One of the main reasons for the developers making Path of Exile 2 a separate title rather than an update to PoE 1 is that they didn't want to destroy what people loved about their first game. So if you want to experience that or play it, you still can, and it will still be available. As long as this sequel has some major changes in it that make it worth the title of a sequel, then we think this is a pretty good idea, especially given how deeply fans love Path of Exile 1 and are super ingrained into it. As mentioned though, this new game is looking like it's going to be focused on mobility, with the developers introducing a dodge roll that's available to all classes by default, and it even allows you to quickly cancel out of actions. For the structure, we know that Path of Exile 2 will be a 6-act campaign, meaning there will be a bunch to get through even without the endgame content. As for the release of the game, they are targeting a 2024 release, so while it is still a while away, it is getting closer to a Path of Exile 2 beta that is set to launch on the 7th of June 2024. So what do you think of Path of Exile 2, and have you played the first game? Hook us up with your knowledge down in the comments below. So in case you guys haven't seen some of the new gameplay for Path of Exile 2 and the preview of these classes, we're going to let them play out for you now.
The gods caused all this, you know. After Oriath was destroyed, I traveled, searching for answers. Everywhere I went, the same divine devastation. It must end. I will end it. And no exile will stop me! This world will be reborn, no matter the cost.